Hello and welcome back to today's personal finance show here on Dublin City FM with me, Paul Merriman from askpaul.ie. I did mention before the ad break that we were going to be joined in studio by Áine Flynn, and Áine is director from the Decision Support Service, and we're going to be talking about an extremely important topic that we think every listener needs to pay very close attention to. Áine, let's talk about EPAs, which are enduring power of attorneys. And you might give listeners maybe a little bit of your background on what your role is for EPAs in the Decision Support Service, please.
Thanks, Paul. Thank you. An enduring power of attorney has been around for a while.
Yes.
And it now has a new format, and the new format involves us, the Decision Support Service. An enduring power of attorney is a way for an adult to plan ahead effectively to ensure that should the worst happen, and if they become unable to make their own decisions, and they could be decisions about their property, their money, their personal welfare, that somebody is going to be legally able to step in and take those decisions for them. Somebody they know and trust, called for these purposes their attorney. So that doesn't mean lawyer, it's the person that they know and trust. And we put that in place in a formal instrument, and that's called an enduring power of attorney.
Great. And the Decision Support Service, or abbreviated DSS, you guys are there in the background to help people through this process, help to formulate it, and bring actually a registrar to life as well. So it's actually recorded. So if something does go wrong and somebody wants to call on that EPA, they know where to go and get it, basically.
So we're statutory.
Yes.
And we are staff within the Mental Health Commission, and we take our functions from a new act with a big long name called the Assisted Decision Making Capacity Act. So when it comes to enduring powers of attorney, we have a broad duty to promote them, to raise public awareness and public confidence, to be a source of information. And we have lots of information on our website, decisionsupportservice.ie. When people make their enduring power of attorney, and this is part of the new piece, they send it to us to be reviewed and to be registered. And that would give people the comfort of knowing that we've looked at it and said, yes, that's done correctly, it's legally robust, it's here on a register, which can be searched if need be, so that people will know in the future that you've made this, and these are the people who are authorised to step up and become your decision maker. But should you have a progressive illness or a sudden event or whatever might happen that impacts on your ability to decide these things for yourself.
Okay, I think this is important for listeners because the DSS, or the Decision Support Service.ie, was brought to my attention quite recently. And when I heard about it, I'm going to be honest, even from a financial planning point of view, when I speak to clients, we ask every client, have they made a will? And most of them will say, no, but I should do it, and I must do it. And then we'll ask them to go off and do it before the next, recommend that they do it before the next financial planning consultation. They'll go back in a year later, have you done it? No, but we're going to do it, we're going to be on this list for this or that, and they leave it on the long finger. We've never asked about this, and the reason being is lack of knowledge in my industry, I feel, and even for myself, I will say. And when we're speaking about it before, I automatically assume, like, my parents are in their 70s, so I would automatically assume that an EPA would be for my parents. So if they do get sick or incapacitated at this age, that it be, one of the siblings, maybe one of the siblings, probably my eldest sister, to be honest, will swoop in and automatically take care of things. But that's not the case. I think that's a misconception across everybody. That it like, without an EPA, that is definitely not the case. There's no, and I also thought, until you educated me on this, that, we'll all just decide, actually, we trust Lorraine. Lorraine, you go and do all this. Lorraine has no authority to do it.
There are many Lorraines. I've quite a bit to unpack there. Thank you for that. Wills. People have got better, I think, at making them. Wills are when you're, gone from the cares of this world. An enduring power of attorney is about ensuring that your decisions are being made for you responsibly by somebody that you trust.
Yes. When
you're still here but unable to make those decisions yourself. It's a document that only comes into effect if the worst happens and you lose capacity. Whatever about the Irish psyche, we're not great at grappling with this. Only about 8% of people who could have an EPA, because they've been around for a while under an older act, have an EPA, compared to something like a quarter of adults in the UK. I think partly, it's to do with a number of things, but there is that embedded idea that the Lorraine of the family gets to step in, or your spouse does, or if you're the parent of a child who sadly has lost capacity, who's a grown-up, that you're able to step in. And this is what we tend to call the myth of next of kin, a term which I wish we could do away with, because it does promote that idea that there's already this mystique around being that close family member and that you already have a job. Next of kin is a succession term. It's to do with when you were dead, not actually when you're alive.
Do you know where I think that actually stems from as well? Because I was in the Beacon Hospital recently.
Oh, yeah.
And the first thing I was asked is, who's your next of kin? And I just, I'm like, well, you've said it. But it's a term in society that everyone just thinks you're next to kin.
It's absolutely there. No,
yeah, it
you're
is
quite
there.
right. And when it comes to that kind of healthcare, it's still honest. I can attest to it myself from recent events. Really, it would help if they put emergency contact there, because it really is that person who's
I think then even for myself, like I say, oh well, if something's happened to me, Sarah will just get the automatic right to make everything for my spouse. But again, that's not necessarily the case, because you need EPA in place.
A legal authority to do it. And if you don't plan ahead, which is what we're very much recommending, the route instead would be to court.
Yes.
For the appointment potentially of a decision-making representative, possibly the same person that you would have picked in your EPA, but I think everybody would avoid the journey to court if they could.
Nobody needs that stress, and I suppose that's why when it was highlighted to me recently about how the importance of the EPA, and it was also highlighted that, and you mentioned this as well, God forbid it was one of the kids, so we've got adult kids now that are over 18 years of age. And again, I would have assumed that if something was to happen to them from a sickness, illness point of view, and they were incapacitated for some reason, that we would automatically, as their parents, get the right to, sort of...
This is an adult, then no, that isn't the case.
Yeah, it's not the case. So again, it was, January 1, a learning curve where I thought we'd get you onto the show to explain it to listeners and talk about the importance of it. Okay, so we're highlighting the importance, I would say, from a financial planning point of view, that everybody needs an EPA, and especially if somebody's in from a financial planning point of view and talking about legal structures like trusts and wealth management and estate planning and the best use of the capital acquisition tax relief of the €400,000 from parent to child, all these things that we discuss with clients, that this is definitely one of the missing pieces. But I'm going to be honest, as soon as I mention EPA to a client, I have a funny feeling like I will.
So they think it's for down the road?
Well, they're going to say, oh yeah, we get it. They're going to leave the boardroom or the team's call, whatever wrong with the client, and they're going to think about it but not execute, and that's really where you guys come in with the decision support service, because you can do everything in there. They can register with you, set up an account for free, which registers. You have to use your proof of identity.
Yeah, it's primarily an online system, but with alternatives for people who just can't work with the online. We have an accessibility policy to take care of that. And look, if you don't have an EPA, the best time is always now.
Yes.
But we would encourage people to think about them at an earlier stage in life. If you wait until capacities become an issue, perhaps you're creating problems for yourself. But absolutely, if you don't have one, then endeavour to make one. And that's by coming. The first port of call absolutely can be with us. And we have a help desk as well, real living, breathing individuals who'll take your call around that. From the starting point of getting you set up with a MyDSS account. And from there, you can work through the application step by step. There's lots of supporting information available from us, explainer videos that will talk you through it screen by screen.
Oh, I will say, I think the website's excellent. I actually learned a lot by just jumping on the website.
And we're working on it all the time.
Yeah, and it's really plain English. It gives you all the various different steps. And yes, there's a bit of work in this, but not as much work as somebody in your immediate family or friends or network, whatever you want. Not as much work as them going to court and trying to sort it afterwards.
Yeah, I think most people would agree with that.
Yeah.
And look, there's a bit to it. They're putting in place an important legal arrangement, so you're not going to have one between now and lunchtime, probably, although we can turn them around pretty fast, I will say. So you'd be thinking about, I suppose initially, who do I want to have as my, and a really important tip that we mentioned is future-proof your EPA, so that you might be picking, and typically do pick their spouse, but then what if
the spouse has passed away or
comes unavailable?
Classified.
So do think about who will step in as a replacement attorney instead, and often people might then be thinking about their two adult children, perhaps getting them to act together to do that.
So I suppose let's use the example of, I will go with my parents, because again, not I said my eldest sisters are right, so say my mum and dad, my dad decides, I'm going to put an EPA in place, and we're going to make Lorraine, who's the eldest daughter,
the attorney primarily.
The attorney primarily. Mm-hmm. Okay, so Lorraine don't get carried away. You're not a solicitor, but you're called an attorney for the appoint of the EPA. They reach out to you guys. They set up an account. They appoint Lorraine. They tell two other people.
There's notices involved.
So they might tell me and my brother or my sister, whoever it is.
There's a fixed list of people who have to be notified, and a certain number who have to be notified.
And is that to stop people contesting it later, yeah?
Quite right. And they have an opportunity to say, look, sadly, Paul's already lost capacity and can't make one, or if Paul's going to appoint this person, that's actually quite a bad idea for these specific reasons. And we have to consider those objections as part of our review process before it makes it over the line and becomes a registered EPA. We actually get very few objections, but we're there to deal with them. And again, it's a kind of a safeguard.
It's a water
genuinely your document and it's being properly made.
Okay, so Lorraine is the attorney in this. We've been notified. Nobody has any issues with it, obviously. But then my dad would have to go They have a certificate from his GP or doctor.
Signed and witnessed. Yeah, the two other supporting documents that you require, and you have to declare various things about understanding what you're at and so on, and undertaking to comply with the Act if you're the attorney in terms of your later duties. The two supporting documents that you require are principally one from a medical practitioner or now another healthcare professional who can be a nurse, a speech and language therapist, occupational therapist or social worker, to say that you had the capacity, which means a new thing under this Act, that you're able to understand, retain, weigh up, communicate what you wanted to do. Basically, that you were sound to understand the implications of making that. And make sure you do it in the right order. Your EPA needs to exhaust and be signed at this stage.
And then shown to the medical practitioner, and then they certify.
That. So that's one of your docs, and then one of your documents. And then the other one is what's called the legal practitioner statement from a practicing solicitor or practicing barrister. And they are saying that you understand what you've done in making this, that you understand that you can revoke it or vary it, and that you also, that the legal practitioner has no reason to believe that you're acting subject to any fraud, coercion or undue influence.
And although these are extra steps in the process, they are very worthwhile having, because again, it makes sure that if you are incapacitated, for example, that your wishes are carried out and there's no challenges to those decisions, because nobody can say you hadn't got the right mental health to do it. No one can say you need the right advice. So
the requirements under the Act, and so that they're part of the supporting documents. And typically people are, in about 90% of cases from what we can see in the DSS, they're doing this themselves. They're still very free to go to a solicitor to do the whole thing, say, take this away from me, and a certain sort of person will always wish to do that. They're completely free to do that, and if you've instructed a solicitor, then it's the solicitor that we engage with.
But sometimes I find the cost, if somebody does miss the DSS point of view, because although they have to go get the certificates and various different things, it's still only €30 to register, and it's a living live register with you guys.
You're quite right, and we've no control. I was going to say about what they might charge you.
Yeah, they'll charge you. They will definitely charge you.
We charge you €30.
Yeah, so it could be, hundreds, if not over €1,000 mark for a solicitor to do. So this is a much cheaper alternative, and it's more secure in my opinion, because you also got to remember, I've seen this in the past where clients have come in and said, I haven't got these at the house, haven't got a will. Well, I had a will, but the solicitor's now retired or they're gone, or I've moved county. I can't remember. Where this is the registrar, which I think is really important.
Well, under the Act, we're required to have that, so that when you make this document, you can rest secure that we have checked that it's going to work, and it's there in a fixed place, in a digital, on a register to be located should the worst happen, and if you need it.
Part of that process, you've already told two or three people about anyway.
Exactly. So it's no mystery, no accidental application to court. You actually have already planned ahead and named the person.
And people know it's there, where people might not know that it's in the safe and the will with a solicitor.
It becomes the job of the attorney, Lorraine, should it be, to say, okay, well now, because the person has lost capacity, I need to tell the DSS, and that's called notification. We hope that never happens.
Of course.
We hope that it's decades after you made the EPA. Ideally, because people have done this in plenty of time and in a calm space. And then when she tells us, she's then able to step up and begin taking the decisions that you've appointed her to take. Usually the authority granted is really general.
Okay, so can we talk about then, let's use the example, hopefully parents, hopefully do still listen to the show, or anyway, my dad's listening back to that, this is no offence, but let's say Lorraine comes into play from my dad, who is actually Paul Senior. So something happens to my dad, God forbid, Lorraine kicks in. What can Lorraine now do? So let's talk about the actual importance of the EPA.
Yeah,
so the EPA is in place. Lorraine's the attorney of my father now. So she can go into the bank, she can make financial decisions, she can
do what Paul Senior has said she can do.
And she can actually, as Paul Senior, in that capacity as his accounts and his welfare.
Stepping into his shoes.
Stepping into his shoes.
With the authority that document has given her, and as I was saying, in 98% of the EPAs that have come to us, it's quite a general authority saying, please, Lorraine, should the worst happen, you're going to step up and you're going to be taking the decisions in a general way in relation to my property and affairs, which is a meaning under the Act, your bank accounts, your bills, your property, what might need to be sold, and also your personal welfare. But actually, here's a plug for advanced healthcare directives. You can't include treatment decisions in that, so no money involved here, but you might want to think separately about making an advanced healthcare directive. But then here's Lorraine having told us about it.
So could that healthcare directive be, I don't want to be
Yeah.
put somewhere, I don't want to be resuscitated if something was to go.
It's treatment which can include life-sustaining treatments. Right. A separate document, one to think about. There are templates on our website as well. So Lorraine has told
I'd love that for my kids, to make sure that they would know what I would want if that was to happen.
You're going to do that as well?
Yeah, I'm going to do that.
Advanced Healthcare Directive.
Yeah, very good.
Less involved for the DSS there, but do check out what we have on our website about it, and you can name somebody in that to become your designated healthcare representative.
Right.
So yeah, if Lorraine has notified us and she has the EPA in hand, she's able to go to the banks and say, here's me with my badge.
Yes.
And I'm able to make these decisions. I'm able to contract for the sale of property. And then there can be personal welfare decisions as well. And importantly, and quite new, she does have to turn in reports to us. She has to show that she's doing this properly, keep accounts and records, and submit those to us for our approval. And we support the attorney in that
Once
process.
she's in place as the attorney.
Exactly.
Yeah, okay. So there's no owners for her to do with anything.
No,
Something.
it's all